In the U.S.-Mexico bilateral negotiations, one demand is sitting center of every automotive discussion. The U.S. wants minimum 50% American content in every vehicle made be U.S. Right now, the rule is 75% North American, which includes Canada, U.S., and Mexico. If all the content together equals 75%, then it's okay by CUSMA. But that's not what's on the table right now in Mexico. And Canada's not at the table to talk about it. Anyways, I'm Jack Jackson, still on vacation. I'm going to do some back-to-back episodes here because I got to get away for a couple days. So let's get at it. If the change goes through as proposed with Mexico right now, it'll hit the Ontario auto parts manufacturer harder than any other sector in Canada, and here's why. Under CUSMA today, a vehicle qualifies for tariff-free treatment if, as it says, 75% of its content by value comes from North America, meaning Canada, the U.S., or Mexico combined. A Canadian-made auto parts count as the same as American-made towards that threshold. So, if the auto parts sector that exists in Windsor, Cambridge, Woodstock, Oshawa feeds directly into a U.S. assembly plant, it's okay. The integrated North American supply chain was built on the premise that any part made in Ontario would be the same and dealt with as if it was made in Michigan. That was the old one. Unfortunately, at the talks right now in Mexico, which Canada's not even at the table, the U.S. is now saying it must be 50% American. Let's see what it says. Ontario's auto parts employs roughly 100,000 people and generates over 30 billion annual production. The vast majority of the production feeds U.S. assembly plants under the CUSMA preferential treatment. If a 50% U.S. content floor implemented, U.S. automakers face a choice. Restructure their supply chains to source more U.S. suppliers or lose the tariff-free benefit on their vehicles. Most analysts expect them to restructure their supply chains. Why would they want to pay a tariff? That restructuring comes directly at the expense of Ontario suppliers, so parts currently flowing from Windsor or Cambridge or to Detroit or Kentucky would be replaced by sourcing something from Michigan or Ohio, maybe even Tennessee, as they continue to build their auto sectors. This is not a theoretical threat by any means. This is actually an explicit policy the U.S. has put negotiating with Mexico, where Canadians are not even at the table talking about it. So, how did they negotiate this, and are we just going to have to accept it if we're not there? So, where does it stand? The 50% U.S. content is on the table, right? Round 2 wrapped up last week in Washington. Round 3 is expected July 20th in Mexico City. Canada's first formal bilateral round has still not been announced. Whatever the framework for the U.S.-Mexico agreement becomes a template that Canada has to negotiate around. And if the 50% U.S. floor content is baked in, Canada will be arguing against a rule, as it says here, that's already agreed to by 2 of the 3 parties. That's going to be a difficult one. The Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association of Canada has been sounding this alarm for months. The government knows the exposure, though. So the question is whether Canada gets to the table before the framework's locked in or not. We will find out. So if you're an Ontario parts manufacturer, and the single most consequential trade policy development of this year, it's being negotiated in bilateral rounds. You have no visibility into it. The best protection available right now is to get your documentation done. That's the only way. Know your CUSMA content, calculate it, know your North American value content, know which of your customers' programs are exposed. The information that positions you for whatever the negotiation becomes is all you can do for now until the rules come down. Unfortunately, not good news. Very detailed today on the Canadian auto manufacturers, but that's one of the biggest news that came out lately. So, I'm Jan Jackson, Manufacturers Daily. Let's get your stuff across the border property, and give me a call. Free 30-minute call and we can discuss your situation at any time. Thanks again for watching, and have a good day.